Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Oscar Buzz. Trevor here, joined by Thomas, as always, and we are doing some movie reviews again.
Finally,
We
it's a
are talking
first
about
for us, huh? Yeah.
Pablo Larrain's El Conde. Very, very exciting. We are both, I would say, fairly big fans of Pablo Larrain. We both absolutely adored Spencer. I know I
Best
like
film of.
Jackie more than you
Yeah,
do.
I was not a massive fan of Jackie, but Spence was my favorite film of 2021. So yeah, I was very excited to see what he came out with next, and
Yeah,
I wasn't
and
disappointed to
It's
just put
it's
it out there.
honestly
Was.
pretty great, like, especially after some of the, like, temperamental, reviews that it was receiving out of Venice. I became a little bit worried about it, but honestly, I never should have. Like, Pablo Larrain really, really delivered with this, and I firmly believe, like, Pablo Larrain should be the only person allowed to direct biopics.
Yeah, I mean and it's very good as a biopic.
Yeah,
I've heard complaints that it's not very easy access. You don't really, but I didn't know anything about PK or whatever. Was Pichet?
Pinochet. What you
Pinochet.
call
There you go. PK, I think Jared PK. No, Pinochet. But I didn't know anything about him. But I feel like I have gained something out of it, and that is really the role of a biopic. It doesn't need to tell a story created great. We don't need to know everything about them. We just need to
Exactly.
get the general gist of what they're about. And I did feel like I got that from this sort of alternative sort of biopic format that it was going for. So yeah,
Yeah, so this is a biopic of sorts, telling the story of Augusto Pinochet, who was a fascist leader in Chile, who was actually instated by the United States government, which is pretty cool and slay of the United States to just do fascism in other countries. We love that for us. Obviously, satire, much like this film, just for
yep.
the people who
I
don't
think
pick up
I
the
think,
joke.
I think they probably got it. Yeah.
Probably, but but it's telling the story of him as a vampire who's been alive for a couple of centuries. So obviously this is not a truthful telling.
Yeah.
And it's definitely stretching history, but this is what biopics should do. And I read about this a bit on Letterboxd. Like, a biopic doesn't need to, like, we all know what happened. Like, we can look up the broad strokes of what happened in somebody's life, and I think that Spencer also did this brilliantly.
Yeah.
Like, we can know what happened in somebody's life. That isn't the interesting thing. The interesting thing is making a statement about what that person meant in history and why it's even important to tell a story about them, rather than just telling the story. Like, that's inherently the reason why we're watching the film, is their story. But give us the why. What did they mean to society? What was their cultural impact? And Pablo Larraín does such a
Yep.
fantastic job exploring the why of a biopic, rather than just doing the surface level, this is justifying the existence of the biopic.
Yeah,
And he does
no, for
that
sure. I
incredibly well.
definitely think the film justifies existence, but I also think it just goes further than that, and it is also just an entertaining film. Like, it's not just about
Yeah.
him. There's also other aspects to it. I thought going in that, oh, it might just be a concept like, oh, what if we made this dictator vampire? Wouldn't that be fun? Like, yes, there is the obvious metaphor there, but it goes a lot further than that. It does a lot more with the concept. You've got the
Yeah.
family stuff. You've got the stuff with the nun, which I thought was a very interesting character, an interesting angle to view it from, like, this sort of outsider perspective on their life and the way they live. And yes, I definitely think this film does justify its existence as a biopic, but also goes a lot further than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of thematic layers. Again, there's the very obvious metaphor of, oh, you
Yeah,
have the, rich fascist dictator quite literally eating the hearts and souls of the people
yeah,
he is lording over. Like, yes, that's very obvious, very correct, but a very, very obvious metaphor to make. But one, it's really funny. I found this film
yeah.
hilarious. I
It
know
does
some
have a
people were
lot of
like,
good humor. The humor does work. The
like,
humor does
like,
work
this
in this.
isn't funny. Where's the comedy in this? And it's like, were you watching it? I don't know. I thought that this film was hilarious. There's a particular. We won't necessarily go into spoilers. I guess maybe there's a reveal of who a woman with a
Yeah,
British accent is.
yeah,
That when the reveal drops, it isn't necessarily the most surprising thing, but the way in which it's done and built up before the name drop was so funny to me. I was
yeah. And
cackling.
even the reveal as well of how that is done and how that aspect is brought into it is also excellent. I thought the person playing this character did a very good job of
It's
selling
so
it.
fun.
It's not just an imitation. It is sort of they would bring their own thing to it. And yeah, I thought all the acting as well was actually very
Yeah,
good.
it's pretty good.
Like, just across the board in general. I don't think there was necessarily any standouts, but I do think they worked well together as just a sort of ensemble of characters that you don't want to root for, you don't like, but are also sort of
Yeah.
likable in a certain way. I
I
do
think
think
we're
that's
just
where maybe the
obsessed with it.
film. No, 100%. I definitely see those comparisons. I do think that is maybe where the film faltered a little bit. I do think it's even a bit too easy on Pinochet. I don't know if they really necessarily sell the horror of what they were doing. Like, I don't think I really gauged
But I think
quite
that that's
how
the
bad this
comedy of it.
dictator is.
Like,
And yeah, potentially that is just, I don't know, it gets a bit muddled in
I
what
think
what
that's
we do
also
as
cultural
satire. Are we also
differences.
gonna make a point?
Like, if you
Potentially,
live in the
potentially.
country where that happens and it's common knowledge what that is,
Yeah,
then it's, more, I guess, apt to make a satire of it rather than,
yeah.
like justifying like this is actually what, the horrors
Yeah,
of what
but
happened.
I guess potentially as an outside perspective, a lot of people
That's true.
probably will be to this film. I don't know if that element entirely comes together. And this is the thing. I don't know if all of the elements that Lorraine is doing come together, but I like pretty much all of them that he is going for.
Yeah.
And so it ends up being a very enjoyable, very
Yeah.
interesting, very thought-provoking film, which I
And I
think
ended
is
up
what
watching it
kind of
twice
content.
as well, and I
Yeah,
do think that a bit more of it does potentially come together. I mean, the other thing is, like, I won't claim I'm not gonna know as much about the South American political landscape as somebody who, like, lives there, and I don't come to be the biggest expert on it or anything, but I'm, pretty familiar with Pinochet, and I'm pretty familiar with, like, a lot of the bullet points and the major points of South American politics over the last, like, 40, 50, 60 years, just from being very interested in American politics, and we've unfortunately touched basically every other
yeah,
political sphere because we do, war crimes. So I've become familiar with it just through that. And I don't know. I do think it works a bit better having that context, but it is pretty great that you don't need it.
you don't need it. You don't need it. No, and people are banging on about how visually stunning this film is. Cool, we'll talk
I
about.
mean,
It. But I
obviously,
think yeah, exactly. Obviously, I mean, you've seen the trailers, you've seen all the images, yeah, everything like that. But I actually think a very underrated aspect of this film is how it sounds. Like Pablo Larrain's use of music across all of his films, I
oh my
think,
god,
is
yeah.
just impeccable. Like the score he chooses for each individual moment and the way the visuals complement that. Like it is very impressive what he does, and he definitely has mastered the sort of sound, the audio aspect of filmmaking. 100%.
Yeah,
Because
there's
like
there's one particular
yeah,
scene that stood out to me when, one of the female characters begins to, like, fly,
yeah.
and the score over it is just stunning.
Yeah,
Um,
like it's haunting at times, but it's also doesn't forget that it is a satire and has this sort of
yeah.
campier elements of the score that you're also wanting from it. So yeah, I definitely think that aspect needs to be highlighted and something that's not really being talked about in this film. But it's also not just the score, or the sound design in general as well. Like all the
Yeah,
stuff you're looking at,
particularly
the
during the
blending, yeah.
vampire moments is
Exactly, yeah, yeah, yeah.
fantastic.
Like I'd love to see Lorraine just direct a flat out horror film, to be honest.
I
I
know,
think
yeah.
I think he'd be very good at it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And the ending of this film is quite incredible. I thought I think that it worked. Like, does it tie everything together thematically? No, but I think that the threads that it does pull together, it pulls together really, really nicely, and it's like works really, really well. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I understand some of the criticisms and people being like left kind of cold by this, but I think it's a really, really fun movie. Like,
Yeah, and I think that aspect is definitely something that needs to be highlighted. It is just a fun time. Like there
yeah.
is obviously all of the thematic stuff there, but at the end of the day, you are engaged in these characters. I think to a certain enough extent, and like you enjoy like the dialogue is good throughout. It's very
Yeah, the
snappy. It's
screenplay
got
I
that
understand why this won screenplay at Venice, like,
yes, well, having seen the film, I definitely understand why it would be a screenplay thing and why people would be playing with this because it is a
yeah,
very, very well
yeah,
put together screenplay that is engaging throughout. 100%.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, between the dialogue, the themes, like, it delves into, as you mentioned, like, the nun character and, like, the statement that Lorraine makes about, like, the intersection of church and state under fascist rule and how essentially the combination of church and the use of religion to, employ and weaponize fascism is not only relevant for, lots of South American countries, including Chile now, also relevant for, like, America and the UK and the countries that
Yeah,
we live in about how, religion can be used to weaponize very extreme political positions.
yeah.
And it's really, I don't know. I think that this film's really, really special.
That's another thing you mentioned with the nun character. I would have liked to have personally seen a bit more focus on her and
Yeah, I thought that
trimming
was
out a bit of the other stuff. I think that is definitely the most interesting stuff in the film. There's a bit with the butler, which I won't really spoil, but I feel like that bit could have been trimmed down. Like, yeah, it was adding to the sort of like concept of what he is doing. You know, it is more vampire stuff, which I guess if you're coming to that film for that those elements might be the bits that
yeah.
you're favoring.
I think
But for
it's
me
thematically, as I
personally,
said, I think it's thematically like resonant though.
Yes, yeah. I just think there were other places that I would rather have focused on, and I'd rather have seen Lorraine really go into them
That's
more,
fair.
and
That's
maybe
fair.
if he needed to be cut out, yeah. But no, I definitely think as a film as a whole, I think there is a lot to gain out of it, and it is a very
Yeah,
enjoyable film.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, I'm currently at a 9 out of 10. I really, really loved it.
I'd be looking at an 8. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was excellent, thematic wise, cool, visual wise, all of that kind of stuff. I do think there are a slight few detractors, but not that many. Like it's still a very, I
It's
definitely
just a
very
great
highly
movie.
recommend it.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely. Talking about awards briefly. So Chile unfortunately didn't select this. I would have really liked to see this get selected. Do I think it would have been nominated? Probably not. But
No, I mean international. They don't always go for just the big name directs, like we saw over Hero, Ferrari. Like they're not always just
yeah,
going to go for these bigger name international directors. So, and this doesn't necessarily feel like the type of thing they would go for, but it would have been nice to see in the conversation anyway.
yeah. I mean, I haven't seen what Chile ended up did selecting, so I can't necessarily comment on that. But I just would have loved to see this film get more eyes on it because
Yeah,
I think it's great. Um, the only other thing that I think that you could look at is the cinematography.
for sure. I mean, it's black and white. That is a branch that do go for these showier type things, and this is definitely a showy film in terms of the cinematography and visuals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in the cinematography, it's done by Edward Lockman, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who he's worked with Todd Haynes a lot. Like, he did Carol, he did Dark Waters, he did I'm Not
Oh,
There.
okay.
He
Yeah.
also did Aaron Brockovich. He did Virgin Suicides with Sofia Coppola. So like, he's been around. So he's been nominated twice before, actually, to Todd Haynes films, Carol, as well as Far From Heaven, and he got like ASC nominations and like National Society of Film Critics. Like they also used like a brandly new invented Arri Alexa camera that used like black and white with like in like 4K with like a really expanded aspect ratio and used like really wide lenses with like this brand new camera, and like they did interesting stuff with the cinematography. And I mean, rightfully, the first thing that everybody mentions about this movie is how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Like, do I think it gets a nomination? No, this isn't Bardo.
No.
Like, because Bardo was actually selected.
Yeah. And
And
Inarritu is just a much bigger name than Lorraine in
yeah,
general.
Inarritu's won Best Director twice.
Twice in back
Like,
to back. So yeah.
yeah. Um, so I don't necessarily think that it will happen. Do I think it could get some nominations? Probably. Like,
Yeah.
probably that could
Over the
happen.
course of the season, we could see El Condo show up here and there as a sort of dark horse thing there.
Yeah,
Yeah, which would be
and
very
it would
nice to
probably
see
be
because
deserving of an
it
Oscar
does
nomination for
deserve one.
cinematography. But
Probably towards the end of the year, yeah, for sure.
I don't really think anything else.
No,
I think like that's really its maximum, if I'm being honest.
agreed, agreed.
So that's all we're looking for as far as awards. But don't let that deter you. Go
No,
out, watch this film. It's on Netflix. You can go see it right now. And it's great. It's really 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 fun. It's yeah. I don't know. Just watch it. But that is it for our review. Thank you everybody so much for watching this. You can go and support the SAG and WGA strikes in the links in the description, in addition to following us on social media if that is something you are interested in. Make sure that you stick around for more reviews and awards coverage coming up over the next couple of months. But until then, thank you for watching. Stay safe and goodbye.